Over the last couple of years, I've heard nothing but great things about wild lights at the Sedgwick County Zoo here in Wichita, Kansas, especially from my buddy Matt. I decided it was about time to see for myself if the event held up to the hype. So I gathered my crew, Matt and Nicole, and we dropped in for what turned out to be an enchanted evening. Recently, I sat down with Director of Marketing, Jennica to gain more insight on this critically acclaimed event. First of all, thank you for inviting us to tour the event. I have to say, congratulations. The event is spectacular and went way beyond my expectations. Take us back to the beginning. What inspired Wild Lights and how did it come about?
Bringing Wild Lights here was a vision from our CEO and president at the time in 2021. It was something that he wanted to bring to the zoo since he arrived here in 2017. So we had kind of been looking at different options. There were a few different companies that do this specifically for zoos and attractions all across the country and overseas as well. So once we found the right fit, then COVID happened and we were not able to do it like we wanted to. So we just had to take a little bit of a break, hit pause, and we brought it back for 2021, which worked out really nicely because the zoo celebrated its 50th birthday in 2021. And so Wild Lights was sort of a way to celebrate that 50th birthday with the community by bringing an event that nobody in Wichita had ever seen before.
Well, congratulations. I was blown away. I really was. I felt about maybe halfway through kind of like a kid. I felt like the whole Christmas kind of thing because I felt like a kid running from one display to the next. So pretty awesome. You mentioned the company. I understand the Chinese-based company Tianyu Arts and Culture creates the sculptures. Their website describes them as Chinese lanterns, but these sculptures go way beyond that description. What has it been like to partner with them for the event, and what are some of the challenges you faced?
Tianyu has been a very valuable partner for us throughout the run of Wild Lights. This is our 4th season, and every year they come to us with a big idea of a theme or new types of lanterns that they want to bring. Tianyu is the largest Asian lantern provider here in the States, and so they have a lot of resources. They have a very large group of artisans who work all year round designing the lanterns that we have out. Every year they bring a new show that so far has been bigger and better each year. So this year we've definitely heard from a lot of people who make it their tradition to come out every year. This happens to be everyone's favorite, and I agree. This year's my favorite as well, so I'm really excited what they bring back next year.
Well, I wanted to ask, I'm kind of going out of order on my list of questions here because your answer sort of inspired me a bit. Among all the displays, I was kind of surprised to see so many wildlife displays, as well as, also prehistoric dinosaurs and things of that nature that really work so well with the zoo theme in general. Were any of the sculptures designed specifically for the zoo?
Trying to think if there were any this year.
Or have you done that in the past?
We have. The second year that we had Wild Lights, the theme, they gave us sort of a Kansas theme inspired by sunflowers and native wildlife here. So we had a lot of deer, we had a tunnel full of sunflowers that was really something to see. The third year we had an Alice in Wonderland theme, so everything.
Oh, I missed that. I'm a big fan.
Yeah,
I would love to see that.
It was impressive. And it's interesting because, there's definitely a difference in culture between a Chinese company and a zoo in North America. And so it was interesting to see the differences in our version that we grew up seeing and reading about Alice in Wonderland compared to what, you know, in China they are used to seeing. So some of the imagery was a little bit different, but it was really, really exciting to be able to talk about how some of our stories that we're used to hearing were inspired by, you know, different cultures. So it's been definitely a very educational experience in more ways than we would have even expected.
Wow. So I was really impressed with the size of the event and how long it actually took to go through. And we actually felt we were kind of cold because it was like the first cold snap night. So we felt like we were kind of rushing towards the end,
Yeah.
just because it was cold, and we could have spent more time,
Yeah.
easily. I was going to ask, can you give us a ballpark on how many actual scenes there are, or how many sculptures are on display?
We have 64 displays
Wow.
this year, and that's the most that we've ever had.
That's
the very
huge.
first year, I think we had in the mid 50s, and they kind of keep finding new places each year. They're like, oh, we should make something for this specific area of the zoo. So we get, you know, we've developed a great relationship with the artisans who come here every year. They bring all of the lanterns in on semi-trucks. I think it took 21 semi-truck loads to bring
Whoa.
all of the lanterns in. They're mostly assembled, and so, you know, they're pulling off, you know, an elephant off of a truck and a whole flower, and, you know, the dragon, of course, comes in 17 different pieces, but, you know, there's a giant chameleon out there this year, and he came off all in one piece. And so it's really interesting to see how they get built off-site and then trucked here, and it's just kind of a pile out in the behind-the-scenes area of the zoo until their 40-something artisans come through. Takes them about
40 something.
Takes them about a month to put everything
Wow.
together, but they drive through on a big golf cart pulling a trailer and
Wow.
take all the lanterns to the ballpark area where they're supposed to go, and then spend 4 weeks going around and assembling everything. And they have it down to a science. They really work very quickly together, and it's really something to see when, you know, you've got 15 people, you know, on ladders and, you know, climbing, and they're inside and they're working, and they almost don't have to tell each other what they're doing. Everybody just knows their job, they get it done. They almost don't even have to communicate with one another. They just work together so well in that way.
That's really interesting. It'd be nice to get to talk to them at some point and maybe like suggest next year, hey, can we do a documentary on how you set this thing up? Because I think that would be really interesting, actually.
Yeah, it is interesting. There is definitely a language barrier. They send a translator with them so that we can make sure that we can communicate, because most of them don't actually speak English.
That's so amazing, though. They do such wonderful work. Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, I was going to say, that kind of leads me to this question. There were so many cool things to look at. I mean, there was just a ton of stuff. It's pretty hard to pick a favorite for me. You mentioned the chameleon. That was on my top 1 or 2 things that I absolutely loved. I loved the interactive part of it, where the kids are stepping on the pads or whatever, and it's changing colors and doing all kinds of cool stuff. The other thing that I really just was so cool, I was a big fan of the butterflies, especially that they were in real trees, as opposed to just being the light display. And some about seeing those sculptures in actual nature, the combination of those two things was absolutely fantastic. Now I know it's probably difficult, but if you had to pick a favorite, or maybe 2 favorites, What would be your favorite from this season or other seasons?
My personal favorite this season is the chameleon. I love to stand in front of that thing. I think the way that they change the colors on it is really, it's just kind of mesmerizing. So I do like the chameleon. The Chinese dragon tunnel is impressive as well. It spans a pretty long portion of the pathway right next to our elephant habitat, and it's pretty fun to walk through. They every year bring some sort of a tunnel for that space and a couple tunnels in other areas of the zoo as well. So there was the second year that we had Tianyu here, they had a shark tunnel that you actually walked through the shark's mouth and then out through his tail. And the inside was kind of pink and red with, you know, the lights shimmering around and changing color. That was pretty impressive too. Every year there's something new, there's something amazing, and everybody has their different favorite. They try to make sure everything's different. There are glow swings that they're always a hit. They come back every year. They always have a different version of the Chinese zodiac, and so that's a lot of fun. This year it spans a pretty long stretch of the zoo. In the past it's been a lot more condensed, but if you're paying attention you can see, you know, here's the rabbits and the ox and the, you know, the pig, and so you find out, you have your birth years and you find your birth year. Right. This year it's spread out so that those displays can be a lot bigger, but usually it's much more condensed. But that we've found historically to be the area where the traffic kind of stops and gets congested because everybody wants to find out what they are. But it's really interesting because they're able to sprinkle in education about Chinese culture, about mythology. You mentioned, you know, prehistoric animals, and that's one thing that we really liked about Tianyu and partnering with them, is that they bring in animals that we have here in the zoo. They also bring in, you know, the prehistoric animals, the mythological animals. One thing that this year highlights is animals that they do exist, but they are rarely seen or heard of. So there's a couple little things out there that are just kind of fun to learn about. So they do a really good job of bringing in their culture, bringing in education, bringing in conservation elements, and working with our vision and our mission here at the zoo to bring it into this beautiful, magical event.
I just love the culture of the whole thing. It's so very, very cool. Now, I was going to say the night that we attended was one of the first cold snaps that we had so far this season, and I was just surprised to see a huge turnout. You know, it's like so many people, and I'm like, you know, usually in Kansas when it gets cold, you expect people, at least the first couple of cold snaps, like, oh, I'm not going this weekend, it's too cold. That was not the case. It was thousands of people. It was so impressive. Can you give me an idea of how many people go through on an average night and what the event in its entirety expects to see?
The weather plays a big role in how many people are here each night. Obviously, Saturday nights are the busiest. So if you don't like crowds, maybe don't come on a Saturday. But we might have 5,000 people here on a busy Saturday night if it's beautiful weather. You know, we had a weekend though that was 38 degrees and there were 4,000 people here on a Saturday night.
Wow,
so
that's so
I
impressive.
really think that as long as the wind is not blowing too hard, even if there's snow on the ground, Kansans are willing to get bundled up and go outside and, you know, deal with the cold as long as that wind isn't hitting you in the face. So the wind really is the biggest factor. And then there have been some nights that we've had to close for high winds. You know, if there's a risk of a lantern blowing over or severe weather, we try to make sure that we're open no matter what, rain or shine. But if there's too much rain and we get flooding in the areas where you might need to plug in the lights, we're certainly not going to risk anyone's, you know, health and safety to do that. So we have had to close for inclement weather or flooding throughout the season. But we're even open if, we're open Wednesday through Sunday. So, we were open on Thanksgiving, and we had about 500 people come out on Thanksgiving, just,
Wow.
walk off that turkey dinner and the pumpkin pie that they had.
I should have done that.
Yeah, and so, even on Wednesdays and Thursdays, it's not incredibly busy, but if it's nice out, we might have 1,000 people come through. So we generally plan to have about 70,000 people over the
Wow.
course of the event.
That is so impressive.
Yeah.
And I still can't wrap my head around that these things are lanterns. Because when you see them, you just don't think of it that way. Especially like the ice castle. It's like, how can that possibly be a lantern? It's so huge. It's
That
so
ice
beautiful.
castle this year is definitely on my list of
Yeah.
one of my favorites. It's impressive, and they've built a whole landscape around it with the trees and the unicorns, and it's a lot of fun.
Dragons
It's really
and the ice
magical.
crystals.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just cool.
It's a
There's no way
magical-
else to say it. It's just really, really cool. So there was a lot to capture. We didn't want to film absolutely everything. I got to leave something for the imagination. With that idea in mind, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about the event?
Oh man. We've just been really, really pleased with the excitement that the community has brought to Wild Lights. When you start an event like this, and of course, there's a lot of resources going into bringing this
yeah.
event here, and the idea of it is that it's a fundraiser for the zoo. So, but we always want to make sure that we are giving back just as much as we're asking for in terms of support for the zoo. So, it was important to us to bring something that had never been done before, and thinking about the time of year that we wanted it to be. We know that the fall season is a really important time of year that families want to get together and go out and have a good time, and there's not a lot happening in Wichita in the fall as much as there is in the summertime with festivals and things like that. So it was important to us to bring something for the fall. We also have kind of shifted the time of or the time frame that we have it. We opened it up the very first year right on October 1st, and found that the community they weren't ready to come out then, because it was still kind of bright outside by the time,
Right.
by the time you get to 7 p.m. or 7:30 even. So, and then, we ended just, the very first weekend of December, and we've heard from our community that they really wanted it to last a little closer to Christmas. They didn't want it to start so early. So we've kind of made shifts in the schedule to accommodate what people want. So we found that they want a late fall into the Christmas season. So we're actually putting up a couple new lanterns for the end that
cool.
might bring people back out and re-engage and get them back into the
So we're saving that
holiday
as a
spirit.
surprise, right?
A little bit of a surprise there.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've been attending the Sedgwick County Zoo for decades. I've worked events here in the past as I've been an actor, entertainer, artist, did things with the zoo. Always had a wonderful experience here.
Wow.
There's no doubt one of the best zoos in the country.
Well, thank
There's
you.
always something special in the works. So I wonder if you could share with us some events we can look forward to in the coming year.
2025 is going to be a very big year for the zoo. We don't have any new events on the docket, but we will be planning to bring Wild Lights back again. We're already starting to talk about what maybe that theme might be, or what we might be able to expect. So we've got some really exciting things in the works. They're talking to their artisans right now to see if we have a really cool idea, but they've never done it before. So we're trying to see if we can get that done for next year, if that'll be a surprise. But on the animal side of the zoo, we have right now 5 elephants who are pregnant and expecting
Whoa.
babies
Wow.
next year. So from March to September of 2025 is going to be a very, very big year with, if all goes well and everybody stays healthy, 5 elephant calves. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so
that's going to be exciting to see.
yeah, we are excited. We're planning to have a busy, busy year. Lots of people coming out to see the elephants, seeing all the other amazing animals that we have out here, and then hopefully back for a really impressive year next year for Wildlights as well.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking
Thank
the time to
you.
talk with me today. And again, congratulations on the event. It's
Thank you.
absolutely spectacular.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to come back next year.
Thank you.
All right.
We're excited to have you back.
Okay. Thank you so much.